Welcome to the Dr. Remina Pinjwani Show, where we're optimizing wellness together. I am your host, Dr. Remina. Many people struggle with intimacy and self-love, both of which are essential for meaningful connections and a fulfilling holistic life. Today's episode dives deep into what that entails. I'm joined by my friend Marie Wagner from Alberta, Canada, whose journey from modeling to exploring world religions and spiritual traditions has shaped her passion for healing. After a transformative kundalini activation in 2012, Marie dedicated herself to helping others heal from sexual trauma and body shame. Through her mission to foster humanity through expansive sex and love, she specializes in coaching clients to release shame, build love, and cultivate healthy sexual relationships with integrity and vulnerability. Let's dive in. Welcome for another wonderful episode. Today, I have my lovely friend, Marie Wagner. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to dive into this much needed conversation around intimacy and everything that you do. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who you are and how you got here?
Oh, wow, Remina. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me on the show. I really love what you're doing in the world, and I'm so grateful to be here. First of all, I just need to express that to you. And yeah, my name is Marie Wagner. I am a love and sexual energy coach, and I'm a modern day tantrika. And I am so happy to be here today because love is, as you know, the most important thing in the world. And sex is also so important in terms of health. And I'm here to talk a little bit more about sexual health and what that looks like, a little bit about my story and what I do and Tantra. And like, there's so many things. I don't know what we're going to get covered today. I'm so excited. And so sexual health, I really, really believe through my own experience and from what I know, sexual health is just as important as physical health, as emotional health, as mental health, as spiritual health. And I think that sexual health is not, it's not seen as important in today's world. And it actually should be. And that's part of my mission in the world, is to really, really emphasize how important sexual health is and how much sexual health can help us in terms of our lives, not only in our sexuality, but using sexual energy to ignite everything that we do in the world. And so how great is that?
Definitely. And I think what's important is sexual health, especially for women. We live in a world that it's just focused on men all the time, right? I mean, there's so many, if you look at the pharmaceutical companies too, right? It's always focusing on men. But sexual health goes deeper than just like the physical act, but it's, like you said, all of these fancy terms that we're going to dive into, tantra, kundalini, everything, right? Like, what does that mean? And what is its energy? And it is part of health. So how does one get on this journey? How did you find that this was your calling?
Okay. Well, it's a long story, but I'm going to
And a little background too, I'm going to interject. So Marie and I met, we just immediately hit it off. We were at Richard Dolan's intimate event in Las Vegas several months ago. Gosh, the time is blending together. But we really got to talk about what lights us up, what our calling is, and break free. And of course, you know, he really is an expert on getting you on the stage and things that are important out. And so we did that. We practiced being on stage and, you know, to have more omnipresence, to be a legend, as he puts it. So a little bit of context of, I got to see her at that point, but it took her a while to get to that point. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And I've actually been a sex, love, and relationship coach since I went to school with Layla Martin's school, coaching school, back in 2018. But I've actually been in the closet about it for a few years because of my own, shyness and my own issues around talking about sexuality, especially in a small town where I live part-time with my partner and just more conservative professions and such. It was basically when I met you with Richard Dolan, like I came out of the closet on the stage talking about coaching. So it was just like a classic moment in my life, like just so powerful and impactful moment in my life for me. Like that literally broke me open. And here I am today. I'm so happy to be really stepping into my calling, which is, why do I think sexual energy and sexual health is so important? And part of this is my own story. So, let's rewind back to 2011. And so I'm a massage therapist I have more than 25 years in hands-on work, body work. So massage therapy, and then also energy work called Body Talk. And I ended up in 2011 doing a sexuality course. That's a part of the life sciences and Body Talk. And it was for my own personal development. And it took me years to feel ready to do this sexuality course. It was non-mandatory, but I just knew that, like, the Body Talkers called it the naked course. And I was so terrified. I was like, I want to do it. I had this deep desire within me to do it, but I was so scared. It took me years to even feel ready to do the course. And I was told by people that did it that it was really powerful and really powerful. So finally, it was my birthday, August 24th, 2011. I am literally in my birthday suit doing this free fall course. And it was one of the most challenging things that I ever did. But it broke me through. My message that I got from myself was that I am a sexual being. And I was in my 40s at the time. And I thought, they said, wait for 6 months. Like, this is really powerful. The course is really powerful, but it takes your body mind about 6 months to integrate. So I'm like, okay. So 6 months went by. It was the beginning of 2012. And Remina, I thought I was dying. Like, this was really intense. And this doesn't happen to everybody. Let me just say, like, if you do sexuality work or sexuality courses or coaching, this isn't going to happen to everyone, but this was my experience. So I want to share it with you. And this talks a little bit about kundalini, because it was what it ended up being, was a kundalini activation that happened as my whole body mind integrated the concept that I am a sexual being. All my life I had negated it. I didn't think it was important. I was spiritual, but my spirituality always negated the physical body or bypassed the physical body, let alone sexuality, like my sexual nature. So I never focused on my sexuality, and to really have that filter through my whole body, mind, and spirit activated something in me that I had never experienced before. And I thought I was dying. What happened was my muscles all started twitching, like, relentlessly. And it was happening 24/7. I was filled with this energy. Now I know it was Kundalini energy, but I had, I didn't know what to do with all this energy. I dropped 20 pounds. Like, within weeks, I just dropped all this weight. And I actually drove myself to emergency. I was so freaked out, Remina. I was so scared. And my partner was out of town at the time. And I just said, I need to see a doctor. So I went to Emerge, and he said, okay, we'll do blood work. We'll do tests. I'm sure it's nothing. I'm like, there's something neurological going on in my system. I'm really always interested in science. And and scientific basis for things. So I thought it was something neurological. And so he sent me for an MRI. He referred me to a neurologist. I went through conventional medicine, and it took me months, but they basically concluded my brain was okay. There was nothing pathological that they could see. And the neurologist, she just said, it's an unknown cause. I don't think it's a big deal, she said. So, but meantime, I had all this, it was
You're
still
like, what do
going
I
on.
do? My muscles are twitching all the time. It's happening.
It was really interfering with my life. It was the first thing I noticed when I woke up in the morning and the last thing I sensed when I was going to bed at night. And I had heard about kundalini. I had seen it in Body Talk, but it was different, what that I saw on people on the massage table or on the treatment tables. For me, it was just much more subtle. And I did see a practitioner in kundalini, and he said, yes, this is kundalini. It's not major, but it'll start to die down after a while. And it did. It took a couple years, and now it just kind of ebbs and flows. It comes and goes. But Remina, what it made me see was that my body was just as important as, my spirit, as my mind, as my brain, as my emotions. I needed to see that I was a sexual being and my body was key. So that's where I started my tantric journey. I wanted to find out more.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to find out more, and kundalini, from what I knew at the time, was associated with tantra. So that's when I started to just find out more, to gain more of an understanding of what was going on in my body and what my experience was. I started to seek out tantric teachings, tantrika courses, and then I found Layla Martin's Sex, Love, and Relationship Coaching. And I just dove right into it, not knowing anything about the coaching field. I just really wanted to understand about tantra and about kundalini and what it was going on in my body. So, and here I am today. I love, since then I've learned about coaching and why coaching is so powerful in relation to tantra and somatic work and sexuality. But it was really my own experience that led me to the path of tantra and coaching.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. A lot of times that's where the best coaches come from, is that they went through something themselves. They get the tools they need, the education, and they can help guide others. And what's important about this is exactly what you said. Is earlier on, you said being in a conservative place, right? That can be, I think a lot of women can relate to that, and even some men, right? It's taboo. You're not supposed to talk about sexuality. You're not supposed to talk about anything, right? Like from the moment you're a girl, you're told, no, you're supposed to be a good girl, right? But we're humans. We have feelings, we have sexual energy. And I think instead of creating that shame-based society, is talking about it, right? Talking about it and embracing it, so you know what your body is capable of. It's like the rest of your body, right? Like you talk about chronic diseases, right? Like talk about diabetes, like no problem. You talk about heart attacks. You talk about now getting more comfortable with mental health, but also there's a movement of sexuality too, right? Women are at the forefront of not only just empowerment, but sexuality, right? And I think that's so empowering, because both men and women go through intimacy challenges, right? And a big part, it is, you want to label it, say, you can say it's sexuality or just intimacy, but there's so many layers of it. So I wanted to ask you, so break down the terms. What is kundalini? What is tantra, and somatic work?
Okay, so kundalini is basically translated as life force energy. And it is so, kundalini has been talked about in the ancient Vedic and Tantric texts that have been dated to be at least 2000 BC. And so it's old, it's ancient. And so this kundalini energy is, they give it the vision of a serpent that is coiled at the base of the spine. So if you know the chakra system, it would be coiled at the base of the root chakra. And the kundalini energy is basically a mix of the sexual chakra and the base chakra, the root chakra. Those two energies combined create the sexual energy. And so that is the kundalini energy. And so what happens is usually it's dormant at the base of the spine, but there's certain exercises and practices, or sometimes it comes out spontaneously, and the energy starts to unwind and unravel and work up the chakras, and then all the way up to if it gets all the way up to the crown, then that's an awakening. For me, that didn't happen. I think it got blocked around my solar plexus because I have so much sexual shame from my history, from some sexual trauma earlier in my childhood. And so it got blocked by shame. And so it was not able to totally come up. And so that is the journey of the kundalini energy. And so it can be very subtle, or it can be really strong. And I tell my clients, I am not about activating anybody's kundalini energy. We have really no control over that process. I have no control over my kundalini energy, when it shows up, when it doesn't show up. And I don't have control over anyone else's kundalini energy. However, there are really powerful tantric and somatic practices that we can do to encourage the kundalini activation in a gentle and healthy way. Mm-hmm. So tantra is related to kundalini because it is an ancient spiritual practice. And tantra is, people think tantra is sexual. It isn't. It isn't. What can be, but it's actually much more than sex. So the sexual sect of tantra is actually a very specific sect, and tantra is really much more spiritual and much more transcendent than just pure sex in itself, in the physical act. So, however, that being said, sexuality can be really powerful to be able to generate that sexual energy in order to create healing and altered states in the body. I developed a 4-pillar system of sexual empowerment. And if you don't mind, I'm going to explain that quickly. It's called the four H's.
Please do, sure.
Okay, and it just gives a really great framework to sexual empowerment. So the 4 H's are hero, healing, hedonism, and high. And so basically, hero is that we are our own heroes in our realm of our life, in our realm of exploring our own sexuality and really getting to know our bodies. So if we can see ourselves as our own hero, we can reclaim our sexual life, our sexual pleasure. We can look at shame and things that block us in our sexual energy, and we become the master of our destiny. We're not putting the power into our partner. We're not putting our power into someone else or something external. That's our own work. So first is the hero. Second is healing. And in this journey, there's so much to unpack, right? Like you mentioned shame. Mm-hmm. Like that's such a huge thing because we don't usually talk about it. There's so much taboo around sexuality. There's STIs. There's abortions, pregnancies. There's abuse. There's
body image too.
Trauma. There's body image is huge, huge, huge. For me, it's an absolute and continues to be a huge thing. And so healing. There's so much to heal around sexuality and love, right? And then the third pillar is hedonism. And hedonism is often seen as a kind of a negative connotation. And hedonism means the pursuit of pleasure. And so the pursuit of pleasure can be not necessarily sexual pleasure. It can be any kind of pleasure in life, but I'm more referring to it in the realm of sexual pleasure. And hedonism is really important because pleasure is a pathway to really activate that sexual energy in our lives. And the more sexually activated we are, the more magnetic, the more radiant, the more able we are to love ourselves. And that is so huge in how we show up in the world in every facet, in our relationships, in our work, our career, everything. And then the fourth pillar is high. So high, not in terms of drugs or anything external, but high is actually, we can generate this energy within ourselves. So for example, one hugely important thing in Tantra is breath work. And breath work can really activate the sexual energy, but it can also just produce altered states of consciousness. And so breath work is, one of the most powerful forms. There's also sound, movement. There's other aspects, holistic sex tools that I teach in my coaching. And so that can get us to altered states. Now in Tantra, this also has to do with the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and the kind of the union or the harmony of the divine masculine feminine within us. So the Shiva and Shakti, that would be in Tantra. And so that energy combined within ourselves helps to bring us into altered states, and also even just to go into higher states in terms of something greater than ourselves, really being able to connect to that. So whatever you want to call it, God or God consciousness, so that would be the high. So those are the 4 H's of sexual empowerment. And I feel that all of them, it's not like one step to the other. It's like circling and it's non-linear in that respect. We are all working on all 4 stages all at the same time.
Oh, that is so empowering. And there's also, these days I hear a lot of other options, like kundalini yoga, which incorporates breath work too. So those are some of the more, I would say, accessible tools for people that want to kind of relate to where that falls in. But that is such important work because there's so much of inner intimacy that needs to be healed. So you could choose to have a relationship with your significant other, I mean, it's so important that we have these discussions and figure out where the blocks are and work with that. So you're doing such amazing work. I appreciate that. And I'm sure a lot of people do too.
Thank you. Because I mean, you're speaking of relationships, and what happens in a relationship, we tend to get into routine and we don't do further exploration in the realm of sexuality. And it's so important as part of a relationship, and it should not be put on autopilot. We need to be constantly exploring that. And this work really can take a relationship's sexuality to the next level by doing some tantric practices, somatic practices. And the beautiful thing about Tantra, Remina, is that Tantra is all inclusive. And that is, for me, it's one of the most important aspects of Tantra, because it's not only about the brain or the head or the mind or the heart. It includes the sexuality, it includes the good, the bad, the ugly, the shame, the disgust, all the dark recesses of our body mind. It includes everything. We're not trying to throw out or discount or bypass anything in Tantra. We're inviting all of us to the table. And that's, I think, one of the most important things in order to be fully expressed as a person, to feel fully alive, not only sexually expressed, but fully expressed in this life. And so I think that is so important.
Yes, and like you said, the breath work and combining, it's the trifecta you mentioned, right? And aligning that even scientifically through balancing your nervous system. And that's where the
Absolutely.
complexity comes in. So that's a lot of it when healing happens, a lot of it skipped over the sexual intimacy healing. And so it is connected, it's all interconnected. Um,
Yes.
Okay, so as we wrap up, this has been so great. As we wrap up, tell me, what is your favorite modern day practice?
Well, you mentioned the trifecta,
Hmm.
and so the trifecta that I came up with is the brain, the
Hmm.
heart, and the pelvis. So aligning these three together it's so important. Why? Because the heart is basically, it determines what's important to us in life and where we want to go in our life. The brain is like our internal GPS. And so it's going to strategize and tell us exactly how we're going to get there. And then the pelvic sexual energy, and I include the lower belly with this, is the rocket fuel. So it is the fuel that fuels the rocket. It energizes our body, mind, spirit. If we think of ourselves as a rocket, that's the fuel. So
Hmm.
having all these three, which I call the trifecta, aligned and in balance and really checking in with each other, it's going to, it's going to help us to balance our nervous system, to really bring uh, safety, because safety is huge, huge, huge in sexuality, and to really bring us into our body. And that brings us into the somatic practices, because we can't always be coming from our head. We need to drop into our body. Otherwise, we're negating so much of who we are. So really having these three things in balance is a modern day practice for me. And there's different types of different types of meditation or mindfulness or touch work that can bring those three centers into alignment.
Oh, that is so important, especially going back to women, right? We're wired differently from men. Any sexual intimacy practice, it has those three factors involved. Like you need to consider those. It's not as simple. So I'm glad
Yes.
you talk about that and you provide a way to heal that and align it. It's so important. Um, yeah, so I will definitely add all your details to the link below, but tell us, how can people find you and work with you?
Yes, thanks, Remina. It's been so great to be here and have this conversation. I feel like we could talk for hours about this.
Definitely. Yeah.
Uh, so my website, mariewagner.ca, you can find out a lot of information about my coaching, and I have actually a free breath work, a guided breath work. It's on the website. So you can just click the link, the golden
Awesome.
lips on the homepage, and it's called Have Sex with Your Breath. And it's a guided meditation, a
That's
bit of a,
catchy.
and, and it's a bit of a sound bath as well. I know you're into the singing
Yes,
bowls, so I've got some singing bowls and
I
drumming
love
that go
that.
along with it. A 15-minute guided meditation or guided breathwork journey to really connect yourself to your genitals. So if people are interested, they can click on that and subscribe to my newsletter, my love letters.
Hmm.
And if you're interested in working with me, you can head on to my website as well, and we can do a discovery session together. And yeah, and then, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, all of that as well. And I would just love, this is my mission in the world, is to bring sexuality to the forefront of everyone's life that feels like that they need that in their lives. I would love to help.
Yeah, and thank you for creating such a clear explanation of sexuality. It's not taboo. It's more than just the physical act. It's much more than that. It's intimacy with self, intimacy with all the parts. So thank you for
Mhm.
beautifully highlighting that. And as always, I really love talking to you. I can't wait till the next time we hop on the phone and catch up and see what's going on live.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much, Remina. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for doing your work in the world, and thank you for having me on today.
Oh, we are sending everyone here love, right?
Yes, yes.
Take
Thank
care.
you. You
Bye.
too.
If you enjoyed today's show, share with your friends and family, and of course, subscribe. Thank you so much for your support.